just like that. We are on law number 16. Today was actually a really good day. So I went to the bank, and then I went to the barber, Jose, awesome guy. And then I went to the gym. And I'm on about 3 hours of sleep right now, trying to correct my sleep schedule. One thing about being on paid leave of absence from work, you tend to stay up later and later and later and later, and then you tend to wake up later and later and later. And then it gets to a certain point where it's at like, you're staying up until 3 a.m. or later, and you're waking up at an embarrassing time, and you're just like, this shit has got to stop. So I am on about 3 hours of sleep right now. We're going to get into law number 16 on this lovely Wednesday. And I trained legs today. I don't know if I said that. 48 laws of power, law number 16. Here we go. We're just going to get right into it. No dilly the dally, no more ado. Use absence to increase respect and honor. So the whole premise of this law, this is actually one of the laws that I've utilized, practiced. One of the easiest to commit to memory is the simple idea that your absence will increase your value from scarcity. As in, it's why people of celebrities status have so much, power, have so much effect, have an aura, as the kids these days say. It's because you never see them, right? So when you see them once in a blue moon, you're just like, oh my God. And they're heroized in your mind. They're larger than life. However, if you saw them every day and you went to class and they were your classmates sitting right next to you every single day, that facade would dissipate rather quickly. So the whole premise of this law is use absence to increase respect and honor. And then later on, we're going to get into how this ties into dating. Very, very powerful tools for you all to utilize. Here we go. For your games of seduction. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. If you are already established in a group, temporary withdrawal from it will make you more talked about, even more admired. It's really cool because it gives other people an air of mystery about you. You know what I'm saying? Or it gives you an air of mystery about yourself that other people can, gossip about, talk about. And then that is how you slowly get your name spoken about in legend kind of, detail. Kind of, I don't want to overuse the word aura in this lecture, but that's the premise. Because you're not common, you're not the everyday, you become the exception, right? The exceptional. Create value through scarcity. I actually learned this from Andrew Tate. It's very important when messaging someone. So if you are the guy who is always replying, and I'm going to put a caveat on the end of it, but just go with me for the first part. But you're always available, you're always replying within 2 seconds, that will get taken for granted very, 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 very quickly. And the only way in this ocean of social media, as you as a man, young man, to increase your value of your attention, the value of your attention, is through restriction. Because if I'm sending somebody a text 3 times a day, every day for a year, right? How much less of an impact does that have versus the person who sends one message to somebody every 3 months, or somebody who's on their Instagram stories who posts once every 2 or 3 months? How quick are you to instantly jump on that person's story to see what they're up to see, how things are going, to see what they have to say? Or if a person never posts a video, a vlog of them talking, right? How quickly, if they post one out of nowhere, you're just like, oh my gosh, and then you're hanging on their every word. Versus, and I can attest to this personally, if you post videos like this every day, especially on social media, they'll silence the videos. They'll just tap through. So when you're omnipresent, then the aura goes out the window. Then the value of your words gets taken for granted, unfortunately. But that's the reality of it. Through scarcity, we get excitement. We get a greater degree of respect. Women respect guys more that are less available than the guy who's always available, always has time, right? So that is very important. That's a prelude to the dating context that I want to tie it in because it's prevalent in today's modern world. Next. Absence inflames and excites. Even more so when you don't give an explanation, because you force the other person's own imagination to be stimulated and take over. So that's a huge, huge key. If you have no air of mystery about yourself, if you're completely predictable, if a person knows your everyday schedule, and I want to not lose my train of thought. I said I was going to come back with a caveat for what I said before about sort of, and maybe I'll tie it in at the end, but playing all of these stupid games, right? When it comes to texting, when it comes to increasing your value of your attention, etc. But for the sake of this point, that's the one thing people ruin when it comes to new relationships. The beginning of a courting process is they say too much too soon. And so vagueness is such a good catalyst to heighten excitement and mystery and curiosity. But if you tell the person your freaking entire life story on the first date, then you're just like, where do we go from here, right? It's just, give me a preview, give me a little trailer, right? I don't need the whole Lord of the Rings extended. I love that, right? I'll do that trilogy. But on day one, a little bit overwhelming, a little bit, unattractive is what it comes down to. However, the one who has an air of mystery about them is very exciting, right? Because then you get to fill the void, the space that they leave, with your own imagination. And then I'll give this a pro tip for young men watching this. Nothing is more powerful than a woman's imagination. So the less you say, the more they'll create your aura, essentially. They'll heroize you by you just shutting the hell up. You don't have to sell yourself. Let their imaginations run wild, right? With all the mystery of you just not doing anything and choosing not to reply. But it's true. All right. It's very, very true. And not to jump ahead, but it's so important when it comes to texting, and this is something I had to learn the hard way. I'd be the guy who would always be immediate to reply to a text. But what happens when you don't reply immediately to a text message? And this will be a good segue to getting into the games that I wanted to talk about earlier. When you don't reply immediately to a text message and another person goes and they looks at what they had last sent, you give them time to iterate, right? So then they become introspective. Then they start second guessing themselves. Then they question what they said. That I don't like in the like a childish, immature garbage of the game that people play. However, it's very, very powerful for women, and this can go for guys too, but women do this. They do these, I don't want to say stupid tests, but they stress test guys with how much disrespect they can get away with, because women need to test where the man's line is, because women cannot respect a man who tolerates disrespect. I had to learn this the extremely hard way. So what they do is little disrespectful measures to see if you'll call it out. And most guys are very timid, very shy, maybe they just want to get laid, so they won't say anything. But to that woman's, whether she's conscious of her actions, behavior, which I think she is, or not, will determine whether or not that relationship proceeds, right? But she's making a note, right? That he let this slide. He tolerated this. So how does she interpret that? Here is a man who tolerates disrespect. How can I, as the woman, submit to that? How can I respect that? How can someone respect another person who tolerates disrespect? They can't, right? So they're really, really good opportunities. You don't have to be a dick, but just addressing it. And this is the importance of frame, which is one of the next bullet points. Guys screw this up all of the time. When it comes to a relationship, the most important thing is framework. A perfect quote I learned from Andrew. He said, the best way for something not to get ruined is don't allow it to get messed up in the first place. And guys screw this up all the time, where they'll put the woman in the framework of the decision maker, right? So then later on in the relationship, who's the one leading? The woman. And it's too late. The framework of the relationship is fucked up. So the guy needs to be in the leadership role, needs to be the one leading in the physical realm. Women lead spiritually. Men lead physically. In 3D reality, not to get too in deep in this lecture, but if you're not decisive from day one, if you're not asking them, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to do this? It's like, no, we're going to go for coffee at this day, at this time, wear this. Women love that. They love a decisive man. They love to, because you develop trust and you solidify trust with them that here's a guy who can lead. Women can follow someone that can lead. Women can't follow someone who can't lead. That's the most basic way I can articulate it. So a very, very important takeaway. When you are thinking about framework of a relationship, it's the precedent that you set from day one. And if you can make this crystal clear, you're not a dick. You're not being abrasive. You don't have any animosity. It's just, I'm not someone who's going to be in partnership with someone who is going to choose to disrespect me. And that is the precedent that you set from day one. And you either respect those ground rules or you don't play. And then it's no problem. I don't want to be with someone who wants to disrespect me, right? But you have to pass that initial test. And it doesn't matter how good and wholesome the girl is. I don't know if I have ever met a single woman who does not do a form of those tests. And I learned it from Jordan Peterson. I explained this in a prior lecture, but it's from a biological standpoint, not just from disrespect in terms of submission to the man. Women need to test a guy's stress tolerance as well, because their stress is going to be tested around children. So they need to make sure that the guy can remain composed. And it's fascinating. I love that biological sort of insight I learned from Jordan Peterson, but it's really, really cool. So they'll, push your buttons and they'll, piss you off and they'll do stupid shit, just to see that you'll remain calm, that you'll remain stoic, that they can trust you to crash their emotional waves on over and over and over, if that makes sense. But I hope I hit that home. Framework within a relationship, as in, if you're the guy who's constantly, indecisive, if you're the guy who constantly is tolerating disrespect, if you're the guy who constantly needs to ask your woman's permission what time you can leave the fucking gym, which I've been with people who that's the case. I gotta get home. It's embarrassing, right? You need to establish what you want out of the relationship from day one, because that's the framework, the precedent that you set for the woman that you're hoping to lead. Now that is predominantly targeted towards young men watching this, but I think any woman who watches this can respect that. They don't want to be with someone who's indecisive. They don't want to be someone who lacks leadership, right? Who they can't trust, right? To lead the team. So I get heated about that because I see so many guys fuck that up. And the modern world that we live in, dude, it's full of cowards and it's full of cuckolded men. And it's sad and it's pathetic. But the reason is because they fucked up the framework from day one, right? Had they put their foot down, not in a, like I said, not in a dickish way, not in a, it's my way or the highway. It's just, if you want to be in my life, if you want to be in my garden, there's just simple etiquette, right? Of respect, of courtesy, of consideration, of politeness, of being a basic professional adult when you're having a conversation with me. No, there's no emotional projection garbage onto me, ever. I don't ever tolerate that with other people, because I love the quote, if you don't tend to your wounds, you'll bleed on someone who didn't cut you. And I have people attempt to invite and insinuate that garbage on me all the time, but I set the framework from day one. You'll lose the unhealed, dramatic person who's looking for attention. You'll lose that kind of a person, but you'll gain the respect of a quality person, and they'll be very understanding from my experience. So I hope that makes sense in terms of framework when you're going into your relationships. And I had a conversation with one of my soon-to-be past coworkers, his name's Adam, and he didn't like that. He was sort of anti-masculine, and I was talking about conditioning women. And he said, I really don't like that. And he had a negative history of experience with just masculine men. And I probed and I asked him, what is your, challenge with it? What do you not like when I use those, kind of vernaculars? And it was just a projection of his past history. But I explained to him. I said, you're conditioning her behavior one way or the other. I said, by what you're tolerating. So in his case, he was allowing his woman to essentially go on dates with other guys, have other guys hold his woman's hand. He was doing all of these things, and there was no line in the sand. And so I said, you're conditioning her behavior because you're tolerating it, and you've chosen to tolerate it from day one. I said, that's framework. So you can either positively condition the behavior, where you say, I have no interest to be with a woman who thinks it's okay to talk to other guys, to hold other guys' hands, to go on dates with other guys, to sleep with other guys, right? You can do that, no problem, that's fine. but not with me, right? Versus if you tolerate that garbage from day one, you're teaching her that that's okay to be in a relationship with you, and she can do that, right? You're conditioning the behavior by what you're tolerating, right? And then what happens? How can she then respect you when you're choosing to tolerate disrespect? Do you see? The whole thing, the whole house of cards crumbles. It all comes down. So I want you listening at home to not view these as negative. Conditioning, framework, what you're doing is setting the precedent of the respect within the relationship. And that's it. It's very, very healthy boundaries. And if you can do that, you will get the best out of your relationship. You'll feel the most masculine. Your woman will feel her most feminine from trust. As in, if you want to see a woman turn into a childlike girl, it's just a reflection of the amount of trust that she has within you to let go. And that goes beyond just physical trust. It's emotional trust, it's financial trust, and it's physical trust. So, and honestly, trusting them to open up their mind as well is what I've learned. So it's opening up their heart, opening up, trust in terms of you protecting them. Like, I know guys who, when they're walking down the sidewalk, they don't stand on the side where, that's closest to the cars. And it's just like, who raised these boys? That's
what I'm saying. Whatever happened to hello? Listen, let me take you to dinner. Can I take you out for a date? Now it's like, come chill. Like, who raised these boys?
I know, right?
That video of the girl drinking pickle juice, it's wild. Like how little it takes to separate yourself as a gentleman in today's world is fascinating. So I hope you understand that, and I hope that helps with covering frame. So the moral of the story is, don't let a relationship get messed up by choosing to tolerate disrespect from the jump. Don't be that guy. Choose to set the precedent that I respect myself, and so therefore I'm not going to tolerate any disrespect within your partner should be your reflection. They're a reflection of your standard, right? So if you have somebody who's very respectful to you, it's a perfect mirror of your self-love, of your self-respect. So that's the course we want all the students within Ratliff University to embody. That's the path we want to walk down, okay? Too accessible, too predictable equals no room for imagination, curiosity, or fantasy. Like I said, the most powerful thing, and I know I'm speaking to young men predominantly, is a woman's imagination. If you say too much, if you just run amok, you leave no room for the excitement or for the mystery, and you ruin it. Because a lot of thing that's fun, especially in the early stages of courting, is excitement, is surprise, is unknown, is variety, right? So you have that forfeited, right? You forfeit that within your relationship if you choose to just say everything that's going to happen and everything that you're going to do, and it doesn't leave room for spontaneity and for fun and for thrill, right? And that's awesome, right? And it's very scarce. You know what I'm saying? Especially when everyone in the modern world been there, done that, It's just, don't rob yourself of that, because that's some of the most core memories you'll ever develop within your relationship. What withdraws, what becomes scarce, suddenly seems to deserve our respect. Oh yeah, it's just one line after the other. So what withdraws, as in your absence, right? Use absence to increase respect and honor. What withdraws and what becomes scarce suddenly seems to deserve our respect and honor. Like I said, how more inclined are you to listen to an Instagram story of someone who never vlogs and posts once every 3 months than you are to the person who posts every single day? Yeah, I'm sure you're listening to my 60-minute, 5 different slide story posts. Yeah, you're tapping through, you bastard. I was with my mom, and she was like on the couch. We were at her place in Fresno, and she was like watching my stories. She's like, I always watch your stories. And I was like, Mom, I'm talking in that one. And she had it muted, and she was tapping through. And I said, does everybody do this? My own mother won't watch my stories. I got humbled that day. But I also hope we hit the nail home of value, as in your value goes up because it's all perceived. It's all perceived. And what makes something valuable it's a limited resource, right? If there were, I mean, let's use a television, right? There's millions of televisions, so the price and cost of that, it turns into a commodity, very inexpensive, right? But if you have a Pagani or a very expensive car, a very expensive watch, whatever, there's 20 made in the entire world, how much more expensive is that? How much is the perceived value just by scarcity? It's the same thing with your presence, okay? So if you're omnipresent, people will take you for granted and they'll listen to you less, and it's the same if you've ever been in a meeting and you never speak, or you know someone who never speaks, and then all of a sudden they have something to say. The room gets very, very quiet, and I'm like that. I don't speak unless, particularly within the snake pit that I've worked at, unless necessity really demands it. And then when I speak, I have the room, as in it's very, very quiet. And what does that establish, or what does that demonstrate? Commanded respect, right? Earned respect by your peers. So that comes from scarcity. That comes from not wasting your words and not, talking like an idiot, not acting like a clown, right? And it's not to say I can't make a joke. It's not to say I can't, be funny or invite humor, but my name isn't associated with that garbage. It's synonymous with somebody who respects themselves, somebody who takes pride in their appearance, somebody who shows up correct, right? And you set the precedent for your team, whether you know it or not. The people who watch you at the gym, they see the effort that you're putting in. The fucking 18-year-old is looking to see if you quit on that last rep or if you go one more. And whether or not people ever pay credit to you, and I know this personally because I've always been the guy who's gives so much more love and honest appreciation and sincere recognition and praise to other people, and very seldom do I ever get that returned. But I learned in one of our books, I think it's either See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar or The Magic of Thinking Big, that people are so quick to criticize and condemn, but when they don't like something, but they're very, very slow to offer appreciation and pay credit where it's due when they like something, because the majority of the world, they don't live in a state of abundance. They live in a life is a zero-sum game. If he's winning, it means I'm losing. And so they don't pay credit where it's due, from insecurity, from lack. So I've always been that person who refuses to operate from a state of lack, and so I'll always pay credit where it's due. Particularly, it's a good way to also condition your confidence, where it's like if I see somebody who I think is beautiful, or there's something beautiful about them, my identity is I'm the kind of guy that will go up to them regardless of how I'm feeling. If I'm having butterflies, if I'm nervous, whatever. It's like I know who I am, and I'm consistent with my identity. And it's a really good confidence booster, because think about it. Confidence is a self-trust system. It's you trusting your word. If you say you're going to do something and you don't follow through, then that's a little failure instead of a little victory, and you want to stack those wins. Because if you can trust yourself in your word over and over and over and over again, then when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say something, you're like, of course I'm going to do it because I said I was going to do it, period. There's no hesitation, there's no doubt within your word. And then that's how confidence gets solidified. It's just trust within yourself. Okay. So I think all of those things make sense. So now I can return it back when I was talking about those games earlier. I'm the kind of person who loves my favorite people that I've ever met in my entire life. The one thing that I love the most about her, she would respond instantly to text messages. Instantly. It didn't matter if it was 2 a.m. where I live or late where that person lived. If they were awake, right? Because people are on their phone all the time, or if they would be in the app, like say on Instagram, and then I would send a message, it would get opened, that text message immediately, it would get responded to immediately. And it's like, that might have been the day that I fell in love with that person. But I love that. There's no bullshit, there's no games, there's no chase, there's no garbage, there's no making you second guess yourself or feel insecure, because that's something that when you don't say something, when you don't respond immediately, one of the consequences of that is you second guess this person's confidence. You make them second guess their texts, because like I said, you make them iterate. And so it's very powerful if someone tries to come at you with disrespect, and then you set the precedent, like I said, the framework that no, if you're going to talk to me, you're going to come correct, right? Or you do not have access to me. But for the person in the relationship that I want that, no games, no bullshit, no frame, no any of that shit. It's just someone who makes you feel so effortless to love, so confident being yourself, right? And that is one thing that I love the most. And I thought that's just important to share, because in terms of using absence to increase respect and honor, I mean, obviously for all the reasons that I mentioned, but dude, nothing makes me happier than when you can just throw all the games out the fucking window, where it's just like, you are on your phone and you're going to respond instantly to a text message. You're going to make me feel like, you know, the most confident, the most comfortable in my own skin, the most effortless to love, versus the people who take fucking 3 to 5 business days to respond. If not, I know people in my life that take a fucking month to respond, and they're quite lucky that I still tolerate for other reasons, for them to continue to be in my garden, because I know they're very, very loving people, even though that pisses me off. Nothing makes me more upset than being left on scene. I fucking hate that. That has to be my biggest pet peeve, and one of the reasons that I implore this law so much, particularly with using scarcity to reply to people, is because nothing irritates and angers and infuriates me more than people leaving me on scene, particularly if they reach out to me. There's nothing that pisses me off more than that, because I take the time out of my day to respond to you, and then it's not even acknowledging my existence, like not even like a double tap like on the message, anything. I hate that, because it's disrespectful. It's you not appreciating or respecting me or my time. And so the ones who don't respond in 1 to 2 words, but the ones who respond in paragraphs and essays or voice memos or instant replies, amazing people to have in your garden, amazing people to keep in your life. Water those plants, right? Water those flowers. Don't water the pesticides and the weeds and the people who make you feel hard to love, uncomfortable in your own skin, or unconfident being yourself. Okay. Absence and scarcity allows for others to heroize you. I said that earlier. Unspoken words give space for people to provide their own interpretations, fantasies, pedestals, possibly, and elevation. Too available equals taken for granted, as we discussed. Perception equals common. You're a commoner, you're a common peasant, right? You're just Joe Schmo. Respect goes down. And here's a good quote. But if nobody saw him, the legend would grow that he was a being of a different order from mere men. Quote from Herodotus, which I thought was neat. But yes, so I want to reiterate that quote. I know I jumped over it, but the whole idea is what you don't say allows for the other person to play, you could say, with their imagination, with their fantasy, with their imagination is the best word, because they could create scenarios in their own head. And it's kind of, I don't want to say sinister or dark, or we'll say challenging might be the best word, to somebody who overthinks. So if you're in a relationship with a chick who overthinks, you have to offer them reassurance. And so you don't want to do this garbage because then you put them down a needless rabbit hole. But if the person continues to insist, and women fuck this up with guys all the time, because guys are very blunt, as in, if you say, hey, how are you doing? I say, I'm great. That's it, period. You know, a woman says, a chick says, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. But guys, women will poke and prod, and you know, for guys, when they just say it's no worries, there's no problem with this. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was having my super severe heart palpitations, I thought I was going to die. Just the contractions, my heart would seize up, skip a beat, you know, sirens would go off. I literally thought it was the end of the video game. I made the mistake of sharing it with a woman, didn't hear the end of it, and then I told my brother everything, and I said, yeah, but I'm fine though. And he's like, all right, cool. That was the entire conversation. That was it. I said I was good, I was G, right? And then he's like, okay, you're good. Because I'd fucking tell you if I wasn't. Awesome. It is a lifelong quest to learn the differences between men and women. But I'm all for it, I'm all game. I love him. Love him and hate him, no. No, we don't, hate is a strong word. Loathe entirely.
Hate. Double hate. Loathe entirely.
That's from the Grinch. All right. Next. Most prevalent in love/seduction, the lover's absence stimulates your imagination, forming an aura around him or her. And then I put, remember, in the beginning, this is a quote from the book, make yourself not scarce, but omnipresent. Only what is seen, appreciated, loved will be missed in its absence. And to finish, but we just ran over the 30-minute mark, to finish. Make yourself too available and the aura of power you have created for yourself will wear away. turn the game around. I didn't write the E in the word game. I said turn the gamma around. Make yourself less accessible and you increase the value of your presence. It's very, very true. I used to be the guy who any person had access to. Why? Because I appreciate somebody taking the time out of their day to reach out to me, to send me a message, to, take that time out of their day. I respect people's time and I respect people's effort. And so if someone's going to take the time to ask me a question or, be in my life, right? And the one that I have, I was the guy who's just like, hell yeah, let me respond to you, let me always be available. What I didn't know is that you would get taken for granted. People would invite disrespect constantly, but then I set up a very poor framework, and this is how. When some chick would leave me on the scene, and then she would then reach out to me again, and I would reply after her disrespect, and it would just be like forgive and forget, I set the framework that it's okay to leave me on scene. When you view it from that lens, whose fault is it in this scenario? It's not hers, it's mine. From the behavior that I've been tolerating, it's my fault. And you can apply this to guys in relationships. You can apply this to kids who will throw a tantrum and then you give them a treat, like a piece of candy, and then you're upset that they continue to throw tantrums when you're rewarding the negative behavior. You can tie this into abusive relationships. I've coached many women on abusive relationships who they'll give the guy sex after he's abused them. And then I'll ask them very candidly. I said, if I'm the abuser and I know that by me doing this behavior, I'm going to be rewarded with sex, why the fuck would I stop, right? And so what is the idea that you invite into their life? It is their fault. Now hold on, Tarek, that me getting physically assaulted or abused is not my fault. I'm not saying that, don't be a fucking idiot. What I'm saying is what you tolerate is how you teach others how to treat you, period. What is repeated is a decision, period. What you're not changing, you're choosing, period. We're cooking today in this lecture. Does that make sense? So I hope that helps. Use absence to create respect, honor, all of these things. But the idea to tie it in is just about self-respect. It's just about what you tolerate, dude. Don't be the person like I was who tolerated disrespect, because it's not their fault. The only person you should be getting angry about or at is yourself. And I'd be so livid with myself. And I even said this to somebody who used to be my friend. I said, I fucking hate how you still have access to me. And it was just from a deep place of love for this person. But I had chosen time and time and time again to tolerate their fucking disrespect of being left unseen, of being replied to days, weeks, a month later. And I just am such a person who is very quick to forgive. The quote, be slow to anger, quick to forgiveness. Like, I do my best to just be Christ-like as best as I can, to be a good person, to be kind, to be considerate, to be generous, to be all of the virtues that I want to exalt, that I align with, for the simple ideology of treat others how you would like to be treated. You know what I'm saying? But the boundaries that I've had to set over time, the disrespect that I've had to not tolerate, it took me so many years because I never had a father figure, because my parents divorced when I was 10 years old. I didn't have a masculine role model who taught me, who taught me that what you tolerate is how you teach others how to treat you. I was never taught that, dude, being raised by a single mother. I was never taught that women can't respect a man who tolerates disrespect. They don't teach you that shit in school. They don't teach single mothers that to pass on to their sons. It's the importance of having a father figure within your life, within your relationship, within your family upbringing, because the result is the current world that we live in today, where you see so many lost young men who don't know about how to be decisive. I wasn't taught that. I wasn't taught to be decisive, to take lead. I wasn't taught to be a protector and a provider. I wasn't taught any of that shit. I was taught how to be a good young man by my mom. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I love my qualities, my attributes of, if you see masculinity and femininity as a spectrum, you'll notice in my videos, I'm very, very confident with my feminine sort of flamboyancy, because I have the highest degree of security within my sexual orientation. And so I love that I give myself permission to simply be myself out of complete security with who I am. But that doesn't miss the point. That doesn't change the fact that I wasn't taught any of this as a young man. You know what I'm saying? And so these are all the tenets that I will 100% be passing on to my son in the future, because the result is you will be a good made young man, right? The best kind of leader you can be, the best kind of gentleman you can be, the best kind of partner that you could be for your woman, right? To be the man that your partner can completely trust, can completely let go with, can completely trust and submit to your leadership, for you to take the lead, right? But they can't do that if you're the kind of guy who tolerates disrespect, if you don't respect yourself, if you don't set healthy boundaries, if you don't love yourself, if you don't take pride and ownership in your word. Do you know what I'm saying? So all of these things are slow little bricks that you lay one at a time, and then your confidence will build as you practice and practice and practice it, until eventually you'll be in the position that I'm in, where 2 years ago I noticed how much disrespect I was getting from other people and I didn't understand it, versus how much respect I'm afforded today, simply from what I don't tolerate, simply for the people who I don't allow into my life, simply for how I carry myself, how I present myself. And the precedent that I set with anyone who wants to be a part of my life from day one. It's like, no, you're going to come correct. If you want to be in my garden, you're not going to be a fucking weed. You're not going to be a serpent or a viper that we learned from the last lecture. You're going to be good, loving, wholesome, encouraging, supportive. I want you to invite nothing but yes into my life. As in, you make me feel effortless to love, confident, exalted confidence in my own skin, right? Or comfortability in my own skin, confidence in my ability. And it's a lonely path when you first start. You'll lose everyone, right? You will lose every single person, friends and family. But then you have the most fertile soil to then only invite that kind of environment, that kind of friend group, relationship group, soon to be spouse, significant other, whatever. You can't have those beautiful people so long as you're tolerating all of these pesticides and weeds and plagues in your life. So hope that helps. That is law number 16 of the 48 Laws of Power. And to recap, it was use absence to increase respect and honor. See you guys tomorrow.